The knock at the door startled her only for a moment. She wasn't accustomed to many visitors in the first place, but coming so soon after the doctor had departed, she was sure that it was him. When she opened the door, however, she was greeted not by a man, but a snowman instead. The storm had entirely coated him from head to toe. His face was red with windburn and dotted with melting flakes. "I'm terribly sorry," he said as he quickly stepped in and closed the door, shutting the weather outside. "I don't know quite how to say this. I hate to be an imposition. You can't get back to town?" "No," he said. "Not tonight." Emily gave him a steady gaze, trying to figure whether he was being honest or trying to put one over on her. Wait until word gets out about this, she thought. She could already imagine what that gossip Ruth Bixby would say when she found out. "Barely widowed a year, and she's already taking men into her home," she would say. On the other hand, if Emily were to refuse him, she would catch it coming the other way. "Turned the doctor away on Christmas Eve, just like the innkeeper turned away Joseph and Mary," Ruth would tell everybody. Emily sighed. "Give me your coat," she said. "Thanks, Mrs. Harper. I think by the second visit you can call me Emily." He grinned as he wiped his forehead. "All right, then, Emily. I put Charlie in the barn. Hope you don't mind." She shook her head. "Plenty of room there," she murmured as she rehung his things where they'd been only a short while earlier. "I suppose you're hungry?" "A little bit. You know, I have 2 saddlebags out there full of food from you and my other patients. I can bring it in and we'll have a nice dinner." "Don't be silly," she said. "You're our guest. I'm certainly not going to ask you to supply your own food. You'll enjoy your gifts with your family when you get home." He snorted and gave her a quick smile as if embarrassed. "It's just me at home. I'm not married." "Really? I'm surprised somebody hasn't snatched you up yet." As soon as she had said it, she felt her cheeks grow warm. The only thing that eased her embarrassment was seeing that Alex's cheeks had turned pink as well. "I just haven't met the right girl yet. Or maybe I have." His cheeks went from pink to scarlet as his gaze fell to the floor. "I mean, I don't know. Anyway, I was just going to spend the holiday alone too. Not by choice, but that's just how it turned out." "I guess we'll be spending it with each other now," she said. "I'm terribly sorry. I know that whatever plans you had, they didn't include having a stranger stay over." "It's all right. You're not a stranger anymore. In fact, this gives me the chance to make you a Christmas dinner to thank you for coming to see Frankie. I checked on him after you left, and he seems a little better already. Would you mind looking in on him again while I get dinner started?" "Of course not." "Thank you, Doctor." As soon as he stepped out of the kitchen, she hurried to the pantry and opened the door. Christmas dinner, she thought as she stared at the shelves. We've got absolutely nothing for a decent Christmas dinner. Not even for a regular dinner as far as that goes. There was a smoked sausage that she had been saving, and there was 1 biscuit left from the morning. She went to look into the potato box. That, at least, wasn't quite empty. She had a turnip, salt, some eggs, a little of this, a little of that, and not much of any one thing in particular. Barely scraping by meant one thing when it was just the 2 of them, but when there was a guest involved, it was another thing entirely. She grabbed the potatoes and sausage, then closed the pantry. By the time the doctor returned to the kitchen, she had dinner already underway. "He seems to be doing better. His breathing is calm, and he's a bit cooler than before." "Good. Take a seat and pour yourself some more tea," she said as she finished cutting up the potatoes. "We'll talk while I'm cooking." "I don't mind if I do. I really appreciate you doing this. I know you hadn't planned to do anything special." "Well, once you see what I'm cooking, you'll see it's not that special, but it's the best I could do on such short notice." She brought the cutting board over to the stove and carefully slid the cubed potatoes into the skillet. The oil was already hot, and they sizzled for a moment before quieting down. "I'm sure whatever you're making will be wonderful," he said. He fell quiet for a moment, then laughed aloud. "What's so funny? You were kidding about the food being wonderful, weren't you?" "No, it's not that. Just good memories. Being with you here in the kitchen, cooking on Christmas Eve, it reminds me of home." "Your family celebrates on Christmas Eve?" "Yes, what about yours?" "On Christmas morning," she said. "You know, the way it's supposed to be done." To each his own, I guess. My mom said I could never wait until Christmas Day, so she did everything on Christmas Eve just to keep me from whining. Is that what I have to look forward to with Frankie? Whining at Christmas? Emily reached for a spoon and began to turn the potatoes in the skillet. Better get used to it now. Maybe you can nip it in the bud, but I doubt it. Emily eased the sausage link into the oil and turned the potatoes again. What does your mother make? A goose, usually, he said, and boiled ham, fried chicken sometimes. Every kind of pie you can imagine, and pumpkin pudding if I was a good boy. She couldn't help smiling as she looked at him while she portioned the food on 2 plates. He wasn't so old that she had any problem imagining him as a boy excited to get his favorite dessert. Well, I think you've been a good boy tonight, she said. It's not pumpkin pudding, but here's your Christmas dinner. She brought the plates to the table and watched as his eyes lit up. As he leaned over the food and inhaled the steam, an almost joyous look appeared on his face. This is wonderful, he said. Absolutely wonderful. I hardly ever have hot meals at home. You don't cook for yourself? I fry up a steak once in a while, and that's about it. Well, I guess, to be honest, it should be called burning up a steak. I'm not particularly talented in the kitchen. His gaze finally slid from his plate over to Emily's. Aren't you going to have some sausage? No, just some potatoes, she said. I'm not very hungry. Alex had already taken up his utensils, but his knife now paused in midair, hovering over the sausage like a guillotine blade. An odd expression had come over him, as if he were trying to puzzle something out just then. You know, I just remembered that I had a sausage for lunch today. I couldn't possibly have all of this. He quickly cut it in half and stabbed it with his fork, then reached across and placed it on her plate before she could even say a word. You'll have to share it with me. Emily tried not to be a cynical person, but she was immediately suspicious. I haven't met a man yet who would pass up home-cooked food so easily, she thought. It was almost as if he understood how little they had in the house. Are you sure you won't have the whole thing? I don't want you going hungry. This is more than enough, he said, gathering a forkful of potatoes. Tell me, what did your mother make for Christmas? Turkey, Emily said. Every year. She's really proud of her turkey. I remember one time Dad asked if she would roast a pig instead, and she wouldn't speak to him for 3 days. And then we ended up having turkey anyway. And how did your dad like it? He loved it, she said. Or at least that's what he kept saying. He never mentioned a roast pig again, that's for sure. It sounds like you have fond memories of Christmas. Of course I do. It was my favorite time of year. But I like decorating even more than the dinner. You know, the Germans bring a whole tree into the house. I've seen that, Emily said. I went over to the Bachmeyer farm last week for butter, and Anna showed me theirs. It was very pretty. It smelled wonderful, too. You should think about doing that. Maybe it's time to make some new memories for you and Frankie. She smiled with her mouth, but not with her eyes. Not yet. I guess I can't forget what I went through last Christmas, and now Frankie is sick. You know, after Virgil was killed, I spent a long time looking for a sign, praying for a sign, really. That was such a dark time for me, you can't imagine. I needed to see that people were good after all, that there was a reason I was bringing my boy into this world. She paused, and a faraway look came into her eyes, like she was now remembering what she had gone through a year earlier. I needed a reason for Christmas, and I didn't get it. Well, isn't that what having faith is all about? You have faith even when you don't see a reason to? Emily shrugged. Maybe I believed that once, but now, I don't know. I'm sorry to hear that. While they ate, he spent a long time thinking about what she had said. His gaze dropped to her hands, which were encircling her tea, clasping the cup almost as if in prayer. Maybe you'll get your sign someday. Perhaps, she allowed, then cleared her throat as if to change the subject. Anyway, enough about my problems. Since it's Christmas, there's one more thing I wanted you to have. She stood up and took their empty plates to the sink. Don't tell me you're giving me a present. Not a present, exactly. A surprise. Close your eyes. He did so and listened carefully, trying to guess what she was doing. There was the sound of her footfall on the floorboards, a squeaky hinge, silverware against crockery. Nothing that gave him any clue. What are you up to? You'll see in a moment, she said. No peeking. There was the sound of something softly scraping on the table, as if she were arranging something there. All right. Open your eyes. His smile froze in place when he saw what she had done. It was almost enough to break one's heart. There in the middle of the table was an open jar of strawberry preserves. Their last jar. Their only jar. And on a plate in front of him, a biscuit piled high with jam. "I hope you like it. Have some." He took a bite, though his throat was tight, and his eyes had begun to sting. "I can honestly say it's the sweetest thing I've ever had," he managed to say. It was the oddest thing. The doctor's voice quavered a bit as he spoke, but before she could put too much thought into it, there was a noise from upstairs. It was soft and shaky, but it was definitely the cry of a baby. "Oh my gosh," Emily said as she hurried for the stairs. "He's awake." Alex followed after her, taking the steps 2 by 2 as they went to the bedroom. There in his cradle, eyes still half closed with exhaustion, Frankie was grasping at his blanket as if trying to find something. "Did you drop your horsey?" Emily glanced around and found it just under the bed where it had bounced after falling from the cradle. When she placed it in her son's hand, his eyes closed, and his pinched expression disappeared as if all were right in the world again. In a few seconds, he was back to sleep. "Let's see how he's doing." Alex placed his palm on Frankie's brow, and he frowned. "I can't believe it." "What's wrong?" "Absolutely nothing," he murmured. "The fever is broken." "What? Let me see." She stepped to his side and lay her hand on her son's forehead, only to be immediately surprised. His skin was no longer covered in sweat, but instead perfectly dry, and Emily would have been hard-pressed to find any sign of a fever if she hadn't known about it earlier. Frankie let out the sigh of a child sleeping deeply and perfectly content. She felt the doctor's hand on her arm, and he nodded toward the hall. "Let's go downstairs. He should rest." Emily followed him down to the parlor, where he knelt by the fireplace and began to place wood onto the grate. "You cured him," she said. "I didn't," Alex said, splitting apart some kindling and stuffing it beneath the wood. "It was just lucky timing." "No, it wasn't. I was desperate until you showed up tonight," she said. "Now he seems perfectly fine. That's more than luck. That's a sign." "Well, there have been worse signs than that, I'm sure. Maybe that was it, after all." He stood and brushed off the knees of his pants. "I can tell you it was just coincidence. I wasn't even sure what was wrong with him, to be honest." Alex picked up a long strip of kindling and quickly went to the kitchen to light it in the oven, then returned and started the fire in the parlor. Once the flames had caught, he turned to her again. "Believe me, I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't." She smiled. "All I know is that he didn't get better until after you came to see him. Can you deny that?" Alex laughed. "Well, strictly speaking, no, I can't." "All right, then I prove my point," she said, grinning. It was nice to see him there, laughing and tending the fire. It seemed natural, almost. "I'm glad you're here, Doctor, even if it weren't for Frankie." His smile was as warm as the fire growing in the hearth. "I'm happy I'm here, too. I never expected to spend Christmas here, but now, well, I wouldn't have missed it." She could have looked into his eyes forever, but he let his gaze fall away in a moment, as if he didn't want to appear too forward. "Well, would you look at that?" he said, turning his head toward the window. While they'd been distracted by dinner and Frankie's improvement, the weather had changed considerably. Just as quickly as it had arisen, the blizzard had died out. The clouds had broken up, and although a few flakes were still drifting in the air, the snow had mostly stopped. The moon was visible now, a silver disk in the sky, setting the countryside aglow. "The storm's over," she said as she went up to the window and looked outside. The hills were covered with a cushion of white. "It is over, isn't it?" He was at her side now, so close that their breath together began to fog the glass. "Everything seems so clean, so pure," he said, staring at the moonlit snow. "Like we've been given a fresh start." "It's about time," she said. "I could use one." "Maybe we're both getting one. Maybe we can make a fresh start together." "I'd like that," she blurted before she realized what she was saying. Her breath caught in her throat, but there was nothing for it. She had said the truth, and that was that. Alex stared at her for a long time without saying a word, but it was worth the wait when he finally spoke. "I'd like that too," he said, then took her hands in his and stepped close. His eyes, so dark and deep, were gorgeous in the firelight, and she felt a funny lightness in her stomach. She had forgotten what it felt like to have a man's touch upon her skin. She could feel her pulse racing, and her breath had quickened. For a moment she was nervous that he was about to kiss her, and then she realized that she was nervous that he might not. "Emily, I know, Alex," she murmured, and as his arms went around her, she lifted her mouth to meet his kiss. Having his lips upon hers was sweet and thrilling, and she felt goose pimples form all up and down her arms. It might not mean anything beyond this moment, right here, she thought, but for now, it means the world. His embrace was warm and strong, like Alex could protect her from anything and everything that might be thrown her way. She felt a kind of security she hadn't in a long, long time, and lingering in his arms was a gift she had decided to allow herself. After their kiss, he held her like that for a long while, simply being close and quiet. And when he finally spoke, she could feel his breath against her cheek. "I hope I didn't go too far. I'm sorry." "Don't say you're sorry you kissed me," she said. "But that was enough for tonight." Then she kissed his cheek, turned, and went up the stairs to her bedroom.